Hey everyone, welcome to Tangents. I'm Susan Farley, Project Manager with McLaughlin Research Corporation, and I support the Public Affairs Office here at the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, Division Newport. I am really excited about this episode that we recorded to honor Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I got a chance to talk to Ms. Giao Phan, Executive Director of Naval Sea Systems Command. She was so generous with her very limited time and so gracious to share her story with us. She talks about how her family left Vietnam to come to the United States and how she and her parents and her siblings and her extended family made lives for themselves in a new country with a new language. We talked about pho, Navy shipyards, and warfare centers. When you hear her origin story, you will understand why inclusion, diversity, mentoring, and family are so important to her. Ms. Phan is responsible for a humongous enterprise. The breadth and depth of NUWC is pretty staggering, yet she took some time out of her schedule to share her story with Tangents. So have a listen, everyone. So, as you know, we wanted to do this podcast to celebrate Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so my first question to you is, how are you celebrating?
I will be celebrating Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month by doing what I've been doing every year, which means continue to honor my heritage and my family, and then also build on the work that I have done in my positions. And right now is the Executive Director at the Naval Sea System Command. And then doing everything that I can to keep the Navy and Marines team strong.
That's awesome. We appreciate that very much. And just for our listeners, your heritage, you're from Vietnam. So can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like in Vietnam before the war?
Right, so I come from a middle-class family. I live in Saigon with my parents and my siblings. My parents got 9 children. I was able to go to public school. It's an old girls' public school. In 1975, that was when the North Vietnamese was slowly invading the South Vietnamese and took over. My uncle, who is a senior military officer, used to have an American advisor, and that American advisor sent him a telegram saying that the U.S. is going to leave Vietnam, and so they going to evacuate the Vietnamese. And so if my uncle wants to take his family to the U.S., he's willing to sponsor. My uncle actually threw that paper telegram into the trash can and told my father about it. And my father ended up retrieved that from the trash can, took it to the American embassy, and was able to help both families, my uncle's family and my family, out of Vietnam. Both of them stayed back, my uncle and my father, because they still have soldiers working for them. They stayed back in Vietnam till the last day. But for my family and my uncle's family, we were able to leave on the 23rd of April, back in 1975.
How old were you?
I am revealing my age. I was 15. I was 15 years old back then. So it's actually earlier this week, on Monday, I was celebrating 47 years in Northern America.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I understand that your mom and your siblings, you went from Vietnam to Guam, and then you got from Guam to Northern Virginia. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey?
Yes, so that part of the Americans evacuating the Vietnamese refugees. So we flew from Vietnam to Guam on the C-130. And then my uncle has a daughter who's gone to school, in Alexandria, and her husband actually sponsor us. And we flew from Guam to Camp Pendleton. At Camp Pendleton, all I remember was it was very cold. We landed there on the 30th of April. That when we heard the president of Vietnam back at the time surrender to the North Vietnamese, and it was a very sad day. We stayed there a day or two, and then my cousin sponsored us, so we flew from Camp Pendleton to Alexandria, Northern Virginia. And 21 of us, my uncle's family, my family, all live with my cousin and her husband in a one-bedroom, one-bath apartment back then.
Wow, that's a lot of people. Had you ever been to the United States before?
No, I have never been. So it was really a different experience back then.
What were your first impressions of the United States?
That the people were so kind, and they are still very kind now.
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Yes, I remember everywhere we went, we were welcome. So American Red Cross gave us clothes and shoes. When all of us went to school, the high school counselor took my parents and also my siblings and I to a store to get us shoes. My sister's teachers, one teacher, and I think she was an English teacher, took my sister and I out to a store to get us coats, because at the time we were clothes donated by American Red Cross. My English as second language teacher offered me a job, but it wasn't really a job, just follow her, helping her around the house, and gave me money. She was afraid that we had too much pride and that we wouldn't receive free money. So she just created jobs so she can give me money. That's why I do believe in giving back, because I remember how kind all the Americans were to us.
That is really great to hear. So you're a teenager. How did you adjust to school?
In junior high and high school, it was hard because, number one, I didn't know English, so adapting with the English language was hard. And then the second thing was that I have to say, kids in junior high and high school, they didn't know how to interact with people, do not look like them. So I felt like I was very lonely. And imagine, we had to take PE, and I was only 72 pounds at the time. Nobody wanted to pick me in playing basketball, right? I was too short, and the feeling that nobody wanted you to be on the team was a feeling that I remember until this day. And so that, to me, diversity and inclusion is so important, because I remember how isolated that I felt, and I don't ever want anybody to feel that way. When I went to college, it was much different. Maybe my peers were more welcome. They more grown up, and so they welcomed me better.
Where did you go to school? Where did you go to college?
Oh, I went to Virginia Tech. Go Hokies.
That's awesome. So your dad was in the Vietnamese military. Your mom led you and your siblings from Vietnam to America. Could you talk a little bit about how your parents influenced you?
Yes, I would love to talk about my parents, and I hope they listen to this, because I don't think that I ever told them how I felt about them. I told them I love them, but I learned so much from my dad because he was in the military. So honor, courage, and commitment are very important, and that's what he raised us with. And those are the same characteristics that we strive to build within the Navy, and that's what he exhibits on the daily basis. And with my mom, what I've learned is that what a strong woman that she was. She was, back in the days that in the Asian country, that woman's dependent on the man, right? Woman supposed to step 2 or 3 steps behind the man, but my parents believe in the wife supposed to have a job, and so my mom was working. When she came here, she didn't know English, so she stayed at home for the first few years. But I found that she was extremely resourceful. And what I love about her, she has the ability to connect with people at a very basic human level. Even when we had cook, chauffeur, nannies, she treated all of them as family members. And so those are the qualities that enhanced by her devotion and love for her family. So I can't say enough about her devotion to family, her strength, and despite not having everything over here except for $300 when she came, she kept us together, provided for us, given the small income that my dad made. And we just didn't realize that we didn't have everything. So and allow us to build a new home. So I learned so much just from her strength.
Yeah, moms are the best. So you have 8 siblings. Are you still close with your siblings?
Yes. And I think because of the hardship we grew up, we very close with each other. Because when we came here, my dad, from a military officer, worked as a, what you call like a maintenance man at the Holiday Inn in Roslyn. So didn't make a lot. And so we supplemented the income by all of us deliver newspapers. And our family did that for 10 years, deliver the Washington Post.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, so by doing that, because we deliver papers when we had storms, so rain or shine or snowstorm, we delivered the Washington Post. And that strengthened the bonds that we have with each other. So right now, we most of my family live within like 10 miles of each other, except for my oldest brother and my baby sister. But the remaining of us and my parents live within 10 miles. So we got together almost every weekend.
That's awesome. So that kind of brings me to one of my questions. Like, when you're with your family, are you able to speak Vietnamese with each other and celebrate your culture? Like, what is that like when you're all together at this point?
I would say that I wish that I speak Vietnamese to each other. Now I would say that we speak about 50% Vietnamese. I would speak about 75% Vietnamese with my parents, but it's mostly with my sibling we speak in English. That's something I'm not proud of. I wish that I'll do better than that. But we honor many traditions that we had in Vietnam. For example, the Lunar New Year, we always got together and pray. Anniversaries of when my grandparents passed away, we got together and and would go to the cemetery and pray. I think our ancestors did a very good job at creating occasions for families get together and bond together. And then we celebrate every holidays that we have. So Christmas, Thanksgiving, July 4th to us, all of that is just a way for all of our family members get together. And even my children enjoy those family time.
So your family, those celebrations must be really big at this point with your brothers and sisters and their families. Are we talking a lot of people?
Yes. and yes, so our family is normal every time we get together. And now that most of us are married and most of us have children, so it's easily about 30, 40 people. But because we are Asian, so it's not only our immediate families, our aunts and uncles and their family. So before COVID, it's easily get to about 50, 60 people. Because of COVID, we've been like around 30.
Small crowd.
Yes.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. I kind of want to get into, what was your college experience like? Did you find a community of other students of Vietnamese heritage?
Back in those times, because English wasn't primary language, and we were still learning. So I went to college only after 2 years I was here. So the tendency was to get together with a group that you most closely associated with. So even though I was room with American friends, on weekends or whenever we get together during the 4 years in college, I had a group of friends that now 40 years later, we still keep in touch because we share the same experience, escaping Vietnam, the mission for our language and also the culture. So I would say we share the same culture, the food, the music. And so on weekends, we tend to get together a lot. And so we can cook Vietnamese food. And actually, they mostly cook Vietnamese food. And I have to say something. Because I went to Virginia Tech, right? It's an engineering school. So back then, about 100 Vietnamese guys, and then only about 5 or 6 Vietnamese girls.
Wow.
Well, all of us were very popular. So I wasn't good looking, but I was popular. So that's how I remember my college experience. But I remember that we were more studious than my children nowadays. I envy the kids, my children, my nieces, my nephews going to school nowadays. They have more fun. They engage more activities at school.
It sounds like you had a pretty good time, though. I'm not going to lie. Sounds like you did all right.
Yes.
Could you tell me what inspired you to take a job after college as a Navy civilian? Well, what did you study in school, and how did that direct you into a career with the Navy?
So back then, because our English was not very good, so the easiest career field going to is engineering because most of us are good in math. So even within my family, my parents got 9 children, right? 8 of us major in engineering. And for the one who was a major in engineering, married an engineer. So I was lucky enough that when I got out of college, graduated from college, being an engineer, I got a job. I didn't have the U.S. citizen then. So I went and worked for Bechtel, building nuclear power plant. And 3 years later, the TMI incident, the 3 Mile Island nuclear incident happened, and the nuclear industry went down. And by then, I got American citizen. And so that was an opportunity for me to apply and work for the Navy. And to tell you the truth, ever since, when my father and uncle escaped from Vietnam, they flew on a helicopter. And when they escaped, the fuel gauge was like going down to almost empty and flew out to the ocean. That was when there was really nothing. There was in despair. And there was USS Midway, and American aircraft carriers was out there for his helicopter to land in. And so that to them and the story they relate to me was that, hey, that's America. The Midway, that's represent freedom, hope, and that became like, oh, wow, one day I would like to be able to pay back to the U.S. Because of what it represents. Then after that, I had an opportunity to work for the Navy, in the Navy, and to pay back and to honor what we have been benefit from.
That seems to be a common theme among the Vietnamese workforce here in the Navy. I've interviewed a few people over the years who left Vietnam and came here to start a new life, and that is a common theme among all the folks that I've interviewed, including last year when I spoke with Rear Admiral Nguyen. He said the same thing, and I think that's amazing. I think that's really inspiring for people to hear. Speaking of inspiration, I was curious, what inspired you to keep taking on roles of greater responsibility?
It's very much my mother's influence and the example that she set during my upbringing. I have to say that I had the raw material, the dedication, the work ethics, the drive, the resourcefulness, and the ability to connect with people. But I needed the guiding hand, which I later found in mentorship. A lot of people had helped me to navigate it through uncharted waters that lay ahead.
Did you find a mentor early on in your career?
Yes. And I didn't even know that he was my mentor. It was actually my supervisor. So I was lucky enough that I had many good supervisors, saw the potential in me. And when I didn't have the confidence that I have right now, not that I have that much confidence, much more, but when I wasn't even sure of myself back then, they saw the potential in me and pushed me to do things that I wasn't confident that I could do it. And that's the biggest lessons learned that I had with the workforce now. I always advise them to find mentors or have multiple mentors, because that somebody can see the potential that you don't even have, build your confidence, or be able to give you the advices that you may not be able to hear from other people.
So throughout your life, and you've had a lot of challenges, obviously, with leaving your country, and then as you mentioned, feeling sort of excluded. How did you overcome these challenges, and how did that shape you into the person you are now?
The network of support. I am very lucky that I have mentioned earlier about having mentors, but I also have a very strong support from both my families and my friends. Being a working woman in a Asian family, it's very hard for people, including my parents, to say that you should slow down your career advancement to take care of the family. I didn't take their advice. So luckily with the support of my own family, and also I am so lucky I have wonderful in-law family that they support me working and wanted me to pursue my career, an advanced career. So they offer to take care of my children, and then they even cook for me, right? They know I work long hours, so they cook and they bring it over. And so I am very lucky. And then I have friends. As you have mentioned, there's many challenges and work has not always gone smoothly. And I have trusted friends that I would be able to call up on and listen to me and build my confidence, because you need the right support people to lift you out of some of the dark times, because not everything is rosy in life, including the work career path. And I do have a great network of support to help me throughout my career.
So you have a really big job as executive director of NUWC. What do you like most about that job?
The people. I have been able to meet so many people who dedicate their professional lives to deliver combat powers to the fleet. And just to listen to the pride that they have in their work is just pure inspiration to me to do more to support them. This is especially true with our naval shipyards and the Naval Sustainment Systems shipyards effort that I have the honor of leading. I have been able to travel to all but the Pearl Harbor Naval shipyards, which I will be going next week with NUWC. But each time that I talk about our workforce and about what NUWC and the Naval Sustainment System shipyards brings to the employees, to the shipyards workers, I try to stress that this effort is not about extracting more, not demanding more from our workers, but it's about how the whole Navy, from the top down, from Secretary of the Navy, from Chief of Naval Operations, from the Commander of Naval Sea System Command, supporting them. And so our naval shipyards deliver combat power to our Navy. And so in these strategic competitions, the Navy leadership understands that our shipyards need help from across the whole of our service to deliver our more capable war fighters to the fleet. And so given back my background as a refugee and the fact that my father survived his harrowing helicopter trip back to USS Midway, so I view the current effort, what I'm doing at NUWC, is a way to pay back my adoptive country for everything it has provided me. And also it's a way to pay forward so our Navy can continue to be the beacon of hope that it has been for so long.
That's excellent. I think the Navy definitely benefits from your perspective. So I want to ask, what challenges you about this job?
Time. It has always been in short supply. And so I think the pandemic had exacerbated that challenge. So many of us had to adjust our life to the virtual environment, and many had to provide direct care for the elderly, the young, the special needs in the family. So time is really precious, and I wish that I had more time to connect to the workforce, to let them know that I do really understand what they're going through, And I also wanted more time with my family, or more time with friends. And so time is a challenge.
So during COVID-19 pandemic, about a year or so ago, there was a lot of increased prejudice and violence against the Asian American community. How do you respond to that personally, and how did you respond professionally?
So there was and remains a lot of confusion about the ongoing pandemic. There was so much fear, and people wanted to place blame somewhere on someone. So the violence of this is the combination of ignorance and fear. So I want to respond to the violence the same way, both personally and professionally, by trying to counter the fear that drives the typical type of criminal behavior with facts. I believe that only truth can counter emotions. So I always work to provide the best information possible. I do believe strongly that logic and compassion are the only ways to combat fear and ignorance.
It's very true. Thank you for saying that. Shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your Vietnamese heritage and how do you pass along your heritage and traditions to younger generations?
I'm still active in the Vietnamese community, and I keep in mind that life is visual. What you tell people pales in comparison to what you show people. So my mother taught me that by setting examples, especially for the youth in the marginalized groups, it is evident that we need to have equal opportunities. And so it is by product, and you heard what I said earlier, is that I believe strongly in diversity and inclusion as they help to create balanced culture, capable of developing new ideas, and that would lead to greater progress.
What are some of your favorite things about Vietnamese culture?
The resourcefulness of the Vietnamese people, the dedication and commitment to family and community, and the selfless devotion to the greater good. And then it's also important is the food, right? The food is great.
What's your favorite Vietnamese dish?
Oh, there's so many, but I think that it's the noodle soup pho. Everybody likes pho. Yes, you do too? Yes.
Love it. My mom, who is not Vietnamese, she makes really good pho.
Really? Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, we get the star anise, and it's like she gets all these different spices, and sometimes we'll do it vegan, which I know that's not Vietnamese to do it vegan, but once in a while we'll make a vegan pho. It's so good. How do you make your pho?
Oh, and I don't think that I have perfected pho because it's very hard. Right? You have to get the bones and you have to clean it. But I think the secret is you have to cook it, put on the stove for at least 12 hours.
Oh yeah, it's like an all-day thing.
Yes, it's an all-day event, right?
The house smells so good.
Yes, exactly. But I admire your mother then, not the Vietnamese, and she spent the time to make pho.
Well, she tried it once, and I loved it, so she will make it periodically for me. It's almost like comfort food. Like if it's cold and I'm kind of down, she will get all the stuff and make me a big thing of pho. It's wonderful.
Yes, and my sons, I have two sons, when they come home and if I ask them what they want for food, they say pho.
So getting back to your job, you talked about time. Time is what's challenging you. Have you given any thought to retirement and what you might do at that point?
Yes, I have to think about retirement because I have a husband waiting for me to retire. What I love to do, and I haven't been able to do much, is to do volunteer work and holding babies. Right? Some babies at the hospital, because I told my two sons this. I miss the grandchildren. Don't deny me of having the grandchildren.
They didn't give you any grandchildren yet?
Well, they need to find a girlfriend first. And so I said that I will practice being a grandma by go to the hospital holding babies. You know, it's a mutual benefiting to both, right? I get to hold the babies, and then there's one way to give back, right? And then I would be the best grandma. I already have been expert in baby holding by the time my sons give me grandchildren.
I think it takes the pressure off them too. If you can get like your fix of holding babies, like it'll kind of like take a little pressure off and maybe give them a little bit more time.
Yes.
That's what I said when my older brother had kids. I felt like it just took all the pressure off me.
Oh, yes, exactly.
That's all. I hope you find a really great volunteer job holding babies all day, which will probably, I don't know how different that's going to be from leading NUWC. I don't know how much baby wrangling you have to do here.
I think that is a leading question.
Kidding, everybody. Like, don't get mad.
Yeah. But you know, there is a saying, you need to love your employees like your own family members or your children. So there's some truth to that. And so going back to my mom, I love the chauffeurs, the cook, the nannies, like family members. I found that as I get older and as I grow up in responsibilities, I found that my employees' pains really, I feel their pain. And so I kind of recognize what they were saying about love your employees, respect them. But it's really, I think more than respect, treat them like your family members. And so you protect your family members, you treat your family members well, you treat them kindly, and yes.
Well, you have a lot of family members to protect then, because NUWC is a very large community. I did want to ask, since we're on the subject of retirement, what would you like to accomplish before you leave civilian service?
Every day what I do is to support the sailors. And why I'm doing that is because what I hope to accomplish is really what I've been doing, right? Continue to deliver, leading a workforce to deliver the submarines, aircraft carriers, surface ship, and systems to help the U.S. to defend these countries and to advance our freedom to the whole world. So it's an unfinished business, but it's very satisfying, and it continues to be satisfying.
Yeah, it is a tall order, and it's, you have a lot of people behind you pulling in the same direction, working on the same goal. So I'm just going to make a little plug for the warfare centers, because I've been supporting the warfare centers for, more than a decade now. And they all have the same goal, which is to make things better, safer, more effective for the warfighter. They have this person in mind that they're trying to make everything better for, so their lives are better and they're safer and more effective at their jobs. And that's kind of the common thread. So that's just a little plug for what's going on here at the Warfare Centers.
Oh, but thank you so much. Thank you so much because, NUWC would not be NUWC without the 10 warfare centers. And I tell you, the comment that Admiral Galinas and I have always made every time we visit the warfare centers and see all the technology you develop and all the work that you have done, we would come back and say, wow, the Navy pay us to do this. The Navy, we should pay the Navy, right? For all the cool things. And so you're absolutely right. The men and women at the Naval Warfare Centers couldn't have done the job. We wouldn't be the force behind the fleet without the 30,000 warfare centers people.
Thank you so much for saying that. So I just wanted to thank you so much. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and sort of like hearing your origin story. And I can't thank you enough for your time.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really an honor to have this interview. So thank you.
Tangents.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tangents. You can find all Tangents podcasts on the Tangents Wiki, and you can follow us on Fusion, #Tangents.